Good
Mistake.
morning. What is going on,
Hey.
profitable stylists and all your future profitable stylists? We are talking about common mistakes to avoid while doing hair extensions, whether you're wearing them, installing them, putting them in. And this morning, in addition to Bernard, as usual, every week, we have John with us. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Good morning.
And the reason why we know all the mistakes is we've made them all.
Except for John, he's in the middle of making all the mistakes. We're having to remind him what to avoid.
Like I said earlier, one of the biggest mistakes was Eddie teaching me extensions.
So. Yeah, right. Avoid that mistake. That's mistake number one.
So one of Eddie and I's first relationship building experiences is a leader seller in the extension world. John just went dark. There he's back. Was putting a bunch of us together who didn't know each other. I didn't know Eddie too well then. And I was tasked with going around and telling people what they did right or wrong. And I didn't like Eddie's extension bonds. Apparently, I don't remember doing this, but he says, go ahead.
You didn't like the way I was folding them because you'd never seen that technique before, because you didn't know about, the future.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that was the funniest thing was, the very first time you didn't like the way I was folding it. And
because they were wrong.
You were impressed with how neat they were, but you didn't like the technique that I was using to do the folding, because you said there's too many chances for something to go wrong if you're not on top of it properly. And that's how we got into a discussion. That's how we started. That's how we got really introduced to each other and really started, talking to each other and going in from there.
Yeah. You do terrible work. Would you like to be my friend?
Yeah, right. Let's get dinner and talk about this.
Yeah, let's meet outside. I think that's more. That's what your attitude.
At what point did the scooter riding start then?
Yeah, that was way after we were really good friends. Guys, I'm from Slidell, Louisiana. We have no scooters down here. That was the most exciting thing for me when I went to these big cities. And you could rent a scooter and ride on the sidewalks and almost run people over. And let's talk about that towards the end. Let's get to the meat of what people really are here for. And hair extension mistakes. I've made a little list, and what I think goes in a bit of a chronological order, because I think so many things start and are messed up during the consultation. Isn't like that. To start, no matter what you're doing in life, especially in hair. And so in the consultation, a couple of basics need to be done. For me is color matching and getting the correct length. I mean, if you don't get those two right, well, your just mistakes are waiting to happen. Y'all want to touch on those two a little bit? Have you ever made those mistakes?
I can't tell you how many times I get this phone call a week. I need, and it goes something like this. I need help trying to figure out how much hair to order. Okay. How much hair does the client have? And what are you thinking of doing? Oh, she just wants long hair and she wants a good amount of it. Like,
right.
Oh,
yeah. Not
okay.
Right.
It's like, so, no.
Tell me your color matching mistake. Eddie? Ever?
My color matching mistake in the beginning was thinking that I was going to be able to get dead on with the hair extensions, and then using the swatch ring to get like a perfect match. And then while I was waiting for the hair to come in, I figured I'm going to color the client's hair nice and fresh. Yeah. And then this way, when I put the extensions in, everything will be nice and fresh, right?
Right.
Well, the mistake that I had made was I had matched the swatch ring to the client's hair pre-color, not
post-color,
not after coloring her hair. So then the extensions come in and they are representative of what the client's hair is going to look like in 8 weeks.
Or 8 weeks ago.
8 weeks ago.
Right.
But not right now.
you got to find a middle ground somewhere, or you got to be mentally prepared to tone hair extensions. That was the other color mistake I had made in the beginning a lot, was not accepting the fact that simply just toning the hair extensions after they're put into the client's hair resolves 90% of the freaking problems. It's so simple. Good. So that's simple.
Good. I worked with an extensionist and for a long time, and he would come down with his bundle of hair and be like, this client, blah, 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 blah. I need the extensions to match. And he goes, can you color them before we put them in the head? And I'm like, why? And because same thing. Put them in.
Coloring hair extensions loose would be before they've been put in is a pain in the butt. That's a whole nother.
And it was, I did it for him on a few occasions. But what we found the same thing is put them in and then bring her down to the color department. And then that way we can tone it to match what's going on with her hair. And then my favorite was back in the day before a lot of the companies came with like the pre-highlighted extensions or the pre balayage or whatever, the dimensional extensions. It was, you can highlight these, right?
You cannot highlight hair extensions nicely.
Look, I tried everything under the sun.
Not easily.
From laying them out on big sheets of foil to actually pinning them on a bald mannequin and trying to do it that way. There was a lot that went in because I worked hand in hand with this extension just before I learned and a lot of trial and error and some really jacked up extensions.
I'm glad to hear that, because I was never a very good colorist. I was a very basic colorist. I did a great I was a one-trick pony for highlights. Everybody got the same highlights, and I was pretty good at it. And most people wanted a platinum blonde. And then ombre balayage came out, and I just said, I'm going to focus and specialize in extensions. I'm out. So I never really got into the color world quite as much, but it's my favorite thing to do now when I'm with a colorist or nearby and I ask somebody else to match. I'll do that same thing. Can you make her and the extensions match? Which one you want me to color? Whichever you decide. Color the client or the extensions. Make all of this work. And they look at me like, what should I do? Well, I have no idea. I've never been really good at matching color. I'm good at making the extensions work on the people's hair. And it's actually how I got really good at cutting extensions to blend, because you can make a haircut blend better with the right texturizing blending techniques if it's close. And of course, placement, which is on my list. But my biggest color mistakes were, if you think about it like this, I mean, imagine, where's my wig? Imagine I'm a girl with long hair, and my glasses are in the way. And I'm going to match. What I would do is I would go right in and match the color right here. And on most people, their hair is a different color here than it is down here. And extensions go in near the scalp, then all this hair covers it, and then you see the extensions down here somewhere, right?
But it's really a problem. It really is a problem. The other mistake a lot that happens in hair extension and coloring is that everybody wants to force everything to match perfectly without any variation whatsoever. And it just doesn't exist. There is no perfect match, because even if you get it to match right now in that moment or on that day, the next time the client washes their hair, their natural color is going to change, whether it's a slight 1% tonal variation or a 10% tonal, whatever the variation is going to be. It's going to happen. It's going to get cooked in the sun. It's going to get cooked in the heat. It's going to fade.
So we believe you. We believe you. What do we do about that? What do we do about that? What are you saying? Like,
you got to mix. Okay, so if it don't match, get one level lighter, one level darker. Don't go with one solid color. Go use two different. If you're using solid shades of hair extensions. Get 2 shades that are very similar to each other. Don't just go all in with one shade.
Right.
And if you could get mixed, like highlight, low light mixed extensions, that's even better. That's always going to be the best way to help blend hair extensions, especially on highlighted hair.
And if you're going on a strand by strand, then you can blend 2 colors, correct?
Right.
Which then
strand by strand, yeah.
And if you look at any kid, let's talk about a kid's hair, because that's the most natural right now. If you look through their hair, it's not all one color.
Right. Good point.
And it'll give you more of a natural feel to it. I think. And then, like we said, you can always just tone it.
Yeah. So I agree with we rarely order hair that comes in one package, right? That should be the clue right there. If you're ordering hair for a client and you are ordering one weft, well, then you probably ought to use the colors that are double or triple colors, the FRs or the BLs or whatever company you're dealing with. Do a mixed color like you were saying, Eddie. And then often I'm putting 2 wefts in, right, around the head. So at the least, they're each a solid color, but they should be 2 different solid colors, one a little lighter than the other. And depending on if you're going a little lighter at the ends or a little darker at the ends, depending on your color melt, blend, ombre, balayage, whatever you want to call it, then you know which one to put on top or bottom. But then take it a step further. Often you can get that weft that already has 2 or 3 colors in it. And I found it interesting that when people would say she has highlights, I think I'm gonna get that brown blonde mix. Which one do you think I should get? Well, they don't focus on the word one, but I do. They go, which one should I get? And I said, one? What do you mean? Well, you're getting 2 wefts. Why not get 2 different blonde brown mixes? They could both have the same blonde or brown, but if you get 2 different blonde brown mixes that each have 2 colors in them, now you have 4 colors that are all blended together, because it's more likely to break up all that brown and blonde the client already has and look a lot better. And then often you're adding some single strands along with that. And so then if she's more brown or more blonde, you get that pack of hair that is all the blonde color or the brown color, and add that in to pull in that more highlight or that more low light. So color matching, I think, is a little more difficult than most people think it is. But most people think you just match that one color, put it in, it's going to blend. So before we even get to putting them in, we do a consultation, we order some hair, we got all these different colors, so we have our best success possible. The next biggest mistake to me is the thing that's done or not done before the extensions are ever even installed. What would that be?
Not getting trained properly?
That's one, yeah, but what were you going to say, John?
Head mapping? Map out where you're going to put them.
So, yeah. So placement patterns of where they're going to go. But there's some things that can be done to the client's hair to help blending before you ever put them in.
Okay.
So if the client's got blunt lines, like strong design lines, a nice haircut going on, that looks really good, and that's fine.
Then
but
you have
that's
2 lines.
But it's right. But it's the worst thing ever when you're going to go put hair extensions in, because that strong, blunt, weight line, design lines are really going to show through. You should go in and pre-shatter or pre-cut. Or conversely, if the client's got split ends before you put hair extensions in, do not clean up the split ends. Actually, keep them split.
Right. Because it blends much better. Right. Yeah. And so that's the other thing that I've learned during a consultation accidentally through the years is, and we talked about this recently, is during the consultation, you matched color. Now, you said you've accidentally colored a client and she comes in a different color. Well, what about the ones that go home and go to another stylist or use their own drugstore bought color to fix, freshen up? Not only color, as you call it, color or color or whatever it actually is on top. Well, we could call it dye, huh? So not only do they go and change their color, but they'll go to other hairdresser and get a trim. And so I found it super important to talk to them about, do not touch your hair. Don't do anything but possibly clean it.
Yeah, don't try to help. It's the best intention, but don't try to help.
I knew you were going to put those extensions in and cover everything up, and it would be hard to cut my split end, so I went ahead and got a trim before and they get it cut blunt because it looked so broken up at the ends. Well, broken up is what blends so freaking good with extensions. So now I got to break it up again, and now it's 2 inches shorter than it was, and so it's going to be even harder to blend. So the longer and more broken up, the better. And you're right. If they would just leave their split ends, it would look so much better. People don't realize when they're the perfect extension client, and so we have to tell them.
Right. And but that falls under also educating them too about what they're dealing with. But had the same thing happen. The extensionist that I was working with was on vacation. Client came in. She saw one of the young stylists at the salon, and the young stylist took the corners right off.
After the extensions were applied?
After the extensions were supplied. Yeah.
Because she was trying to blend them.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're doing. They're trying to blend it on the side, and they just blend it right into a rat tail, maybe a mullet.
It was a mullet. Are you kidding?
Well, the girl y'all just met here a second ago, Alexis, most of you guys that are calling in ordering hair, she's going to kill me for this. She has been going through an apprenticeship program. I've been teaching her some things, and that's the first haircut that she kind of got wrong a little. And she said, I think I messed up a haircut. You need to come see it. Because I said, go through a few videos I've made and do it without me. And then let me check after and kind of see where you're at. And she said, no, but I really messed this one up. I said, I doubt it. Usually people it isn't as messed up as you think it is. And it can be fixed. And she's like, no, really. I think I messed this one up. I said, quit saying that. Let's just go see it. And then I looked at it and I was like,
you messed it up.
Yeah, you really messed that one up.
You really messed that one up.
It's a mannequin head, but she was trying to just barely blend, and she just went all the way through, and it was just like you said, it was too much off the side. But that's why we practice on mannequins, right?
It's such a natural thing, but those corners, man, like discovering where the hair belongs to the front half of the head to the back half of the head is such a hard thing to conceptualize. But it sounds so simple. It is so simple, but when you're in it, it is such a natural progression to just clip right through.
So you know what I did as a little training? I cut little pieces of weft off of a weft, hung it on a hair comb rack, and I said on both sides, blend it so you can practice blending this way and blending this way. Blend both sides all the way to a point in the middle, and don't cut off the center piece. So she only had this much hair over 18 inches to blend. So there wasn't enough hair to cut all the way through. And so I had a whole bunch of those on, and she had to do each one. So she started learning how to just cut 1 or 2 hairs at a time instead of 7 to 10 or 20 hairs. Like,
yeah.
And so she started getting the concept then. I had never done it like that before, but having those little bitty, they just happened to be hanging on a rack in my office here. And I looked and I said, let me show you how little hair I can blend from here to here with this. And then I said, wait, why don't you do it? And then, it was a good accidental learning experience.
No, so keep your corners, because for length, especially when it's laying down in the front or when they push their hair forward, that corner is so important to connect the framing and face framing and everything.
Eddie, you brought up a good point earlier. You started with something and you went a different direction. I thought this is where you were going with it. During the consultation, it's not so much during the consultation. I guess clients think it too, but my job being more working with hairdressers, trying to figure these how much hair to order, basically. And this is my favorite. It's crazy how it's not intuitive to most people, but when they say I want hair extensions or my client wants extensions and I don't know how much hair to order, can you send me some pictures? So they send me some pictures, and they'll say, well, she already has a lot of hair, so I don't think I need much. And that one is always what blows me away, is that they think people with a lot of hair don't need much more, and people with thin hair need a whole lot of hair. And this is more often than 50% of the time. And that really blows me away, because the truth is, almost no matter what the length is, thicker hair needs more hair to blend in with the thickness, no matter how much length you're adding. The more length, the more hair you need. But just from the top, the more hair a person has, the more they need to start with. right? Do you guys ever come into that one? She only
Oh,
needs
yeah.
one more layer. She just needs one more layer. So just a little at the very bottom in the back will be good.
Do you remember the octopus haircut, Bernard?
No,
So
I don't think
I
that's
had
real.
John rolling. The octopus haircut is basically okay, but okay, here I'll describe it to you.
I'll
You know
come
when
back
somebody
later.
has a lot of density, a lot of hair natural, and then they only put in 2-3 packs of hair or one weft in, so it looks like tendrils or little spaghettis. It's like super thin across their body, but the top of their head is nice and bulky.
And that's what you call an octopus.
It's an octopus or the jellyfish.
Or the jellyfish,
haircut,
you know, yeah, or like the jellyfish haircut.
I call it people of Walmart.
The people who Walmart.
Back in the 80s, we also called it the atomic bomb haircut because it looked like a mushroom cloud.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So that's basically what happens if your client has a lot of hair and you don't order a lot of hair. That's what happens because unfortunately everybody.
Yep, I'm taking it all off.
Oh, Bernard's having a hot flash.
I'm getting hot in this
You
place.
go through the change, Bernard.
It's supposed to snow here next Tuesday.
It's supposed to snow. Oh my gosh.
About every 6 to 10 years, we get one snow.
Sayonara, New Orleans.
I'm sorry.
They don't know what they're going to do with themselves.
What were you saying, Eddie? I know.
No, but the problem is when you're trying to add length, you need. So first of all, if you're trying to add length, by default, you're trying to create a weight line and coverage in a body area that doesn't exist.
Right.
So by default, you need a lot of hair. And
Yeah.
then the person has a lot of natural hair to begin with. They got density, they've got thickness, bulkiness, right? Now you need twice the amount of hair down here because you need that hair to make it look like she's covered up and has hair. And then you need another set of extra hair to match this.
Right.
So it's wild. And yeah, that's the thing a lot of people don't realize is length equals an addition. If you're doing strands, length equals an additional 25 to 50 strands. And if she's got a lot of hair, that's another 25, 50 strands. This is why we talking about you need like 100 to 150 if you're doing a full head with length. And if somebody's got a lot of hair, you know,
it's something to do like E equals MC squared or something.
It's just something like that. Yeah. Right. It's,
but see,
that's how you figure it out.
You actually have a good video. We should link it. You actually have a good video talking about if you've got this much hair, you take away. If you have this much hair, you add in, and this is how you can quickly kind of ballpark.
That was easy for individual strands because after you're doing it a while, you come up with this. I always call it starting points. Most people, what's the average? And then you're going to have people with thin hair need less, thick hair need more. And so with the she hair keratin bonds, I had come up with the average person. And I mean, you can take your average and go a little lower, a little higher. I know up north, the average was more like 120 strands. But for us down south, where the higher the hair, the closer to God,
you need like 200.
Our average full head was 150 strands on most people. But then if you had, I used 3 major categories. There's a few different categories that can decide whether you need more or less hair, but there's 3 major categories that I did, and I would subtract or add 10 strands according to each category. One was length. If somebody had short hair and they wanted long hair, to me, that was a category where we're going to add 10 strands. If they're just adding a little bit of length, then we're going to stay with the average. We're not going to add or subtract. And then head size. Nobody ever thinks about head size.
Right.
When you're putting hair on somebody's head and you're used to taking right here and you start putting bonds all the way around the head, and normally 33 packs of hair, 30 strands would end up right here. But then you got somebody like me with this watermelon head and you end around here with 30 strands. That's another pack or 2 of hair to get here. When you start working over a whole head, that's another pack or 2 all over the whole head. So I always said I came up with my own measurement because I always have these with me. And so I would look at a head and think, I think her head's kind of big or small, but I'm just kind of visually seeing it. Sometimes thick hair will make a head look bigger. I touch the back of the ears with my pinkies and then let my hands overlap. And I have found for me, the average size head, my thumbs would overlap evenly. If my thumb started to collapse over, it was a petite head. And if my thumb started to open up anywhere from like here to here to here, I was like, oh, wow, that's a large head, And so I would say if it was average size head, 150 plus the 10 for the extra length. Average head, stay at 0. If it was a petite head, I would say subtract 10. So it could be, so you could, with the length, the size head, what was the other one? I forgot my 3 categories. It must have been length. If you had a little length,
the size of the head, and if they have a lot of hair or a little bit of hair, the density.
Right. And so you could add 10, 10, 10, and end up with 180 strands, or minus 10, 10, 10, and end up with 120 strands. But sometimes they cancel each other out. You'd have thick hair needed more, small head needed less, still at 150 for those 2 categories. And then you take that last category, and sometimes you would end up or down 10 strands. So 150 was a safe place to be. And yeah, we could probably link a video where I go into that even more detail. But when we got into the onstage extensions with wefts, I had to come up with a whole new system. And it took me a little while. We're putting hair in, and 150 strands when you're in the stranded categories. Most companies, including us, was 1 gram per strand. And so I had to start doing some math and realize that the average full head is about 150 grams. Some companies sell hair by the gram. Some weft companies, they sell it by the gram because 8-inch hair and might be a weft that's like 4 feet wide, but then 28-inch hair might be a 8-inch wide weft, So the weft size and length was all determined by how long a hair do you want, and then you got to buy 100 grams of hair. Some companies just sell hair by a certain gram number, so you had to know if one package might do 2 people's hair if it's short, or you might need 2 or 3 packs of hair if you're doing really long hair. So with ours, all our wefts are 12 inches wide and different lengths. And so then I had to ask the manufacturer, what are the grams for our strands, our wefts? And I figured out that our average full head that would match most people's average full heads would be 2 wefts and a pack of strands. 1 weft single plus density, 1 weft double density, and a pack of strands in single plus density. So with that being said, you use them however you want, but that's pretty close to a full head average. If you need more hair because their hair is thicker, or you need to add more length, maybe you up everything to double density, or get another pack of strands or a 3rd weft. But at least you had a starting point, 2 wefts and a pack of strands. And sometimes, and pretty often, I've got some girls around the country, especially in Montana. This one lady's super successful with just buying 1 weft for most of her extension clients. She's got a lot of girls with hair down to here that's just really fine and thin. And they just put 1 weft in the center of the head, double density, and they don't cut it much. They don't blend the layers in. They just curl it, because that's what so many of you guys out there do. You just curl the hair, forget the cut. And I have to say, one of the trending things that has helped extensions, well, I should say 2 things that have helped hair extensions, the trend of a super blunt end, and it's probably because people weren't good at cutting extensions. They were just leaving them blunt for so long. It started becoming popular. And now girls, even without extensions, want that real blunt bottom that looks like they have uncut hair extensions. Well, that's fine. And then if you just curl it, you can't see the color blend very well, or the cut blend, good or bad.
Right.
So I think with 1 weft, it's probably more important that you don't cut it and that you do curl it every single day. And you can get away with 1 weft. Whew. I didn't really plan to go into all that, but that was fun. Anybody else want to talk for a while?
You're on a roll, Bernard. Come on.
Go for it, John.
Okay.
Go for it, John.
Well, the thing that I found with the double density wefts, and I love I'm mostly on stage, is the fact that you can take that weft and break it down, to use it in placement all over the head. And that's really where the advantage of it is that you can map out a head for that client and fill in with it. And I love the double density wefts because you get that fullness, and then also depending on your length, but you don't have to spend as much time with it. and the maintenance on it is so beautiful. It's a beautiful maintenance. I have a client coming in today, Robin. Eddie and I worked on her together, and she's on her third set of on-stage extensions now a year later. And she babies these things. I guarantee you, I'll send you a picture. The extensions that I take out of her hair today were probably, there'll just be a little bit of wear and tear on them because she babies them, because she followed. I gave her the directions that come in the left.
Yeah.
You know, and Eddie beat it into her head about, you know, you're not going to abuse this hair. Yeah.
When you say third set in a year, you made it sound like she had to buy hair 3 times, but that's not what you mean, right?
This is her second time buying hair. She's a freak about it. The minute they get any kind of loose, she wants them tightened up.
Sure.
But this is her second time buying hair because she wants new hair. Her hair has grown out. So when she had a really bad haircut that Eddie and I fixed for her, that hair has grown out now, but she is so addicted to extensions that she needs new hair because it's not making a difference anymore.
What he's referring to is the weft. He installs 3 wefts on her. That's how bad that's how unfortunate her layers were on her haircuts. So in trying to blend and grow and balance out all those layers in her hair, it required 3 sets of wefts, you know, three wefts.
Right.
So the next biggest problem I see in all techniques across the board, educators included, when I'm watching these training videos, is a couple of things coupled together. Enough hair to support the weight of the hair you're adding to the head.
Good
so
point.
anchor points in the correct direction. So let me this is a harsh, weird example, but I've been intrigued with this ever since I was a kid. You guys ever see the girl at the circus with her hair in a ponytail on top of her head, and then she hangs from her hair like a trapeze artist, but she's hanging from her hair and she's spinning and doing things, and only her hair supporting all of her body weight? I think I could do that, actually, because you can pull on my hair and it actually feels good. I have this tough scalp. But imagine this. Imagine you put all her hair in a low ponytail down here, and then you pull it straight up to hang her from it. That's not going to work the same, right? Because when you pull that low ponytail up, all the pressure is going to be coming from these few hairs on the back of the neck right here. They don't really like being pulled up as much. And the hair on top of the head won't be supporting any weight because it's pulled all to here. And so I know that's a really weird, big, giant, all head example, but that's basically how hair extensions are supported. They're little miniature micro ponytails, no matter how you're doing it, what technique you're using. And too often, whether it be a keratin bond that somebody slices out 3 hairs to connect 100 hairs to, and then they roll it together, and then it falls out, and then they show it on Facebook and say, what is wrong with this company's hair extension hair? It's falling right out of my head and causing me bald spots.
I must have got a bad batch.
It's just like the bad tuba color example.
Yeah, exactly. And hair color, same thing. I must have gotten the bad tube. I ordered a dozen tubes, but that one out of that dozen must have been bad.
Right. The colors comes out, takes a bottle of color, takes the lid off, just dumps it on top of your head, does like this, and washes it out and wonders, why didn't that not look good?
That color doesn't work.
That color does not work. I thought it would come out the bottle and go where it's supposed to be and turn the right color in the right amount of time. Yeah, it just blows me away, the things people blame their faults on. I don't even know what words to use. And it's inexperience, because guys, this is part of why we're here. We've done a lot of these mistakes. I've made these mistakes in the beginning. I've made them sometime in the middle where I'm trying to push the envelope with keratin bonds, cutting them shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, trying to make them look like they're almost not there till they weren't there anymore. And then I had to come back and make the bonds bigger. I sacrificed a full head of extensions, ruined the girl's hair. Good thing she was a friend. Didn't ruin her hair. they just weren't holding because I didn't have enough keratin to hold on to. I mean,
Well,
when you're heating that keratin, if your fingers are sliding and growing that melting keratin and you're making this big sloppy mess at a bad angle, things are not going to feel comfortable, go right. There's going to be problems. So having enough hair to support the weight of whatever, and that's why I hate tape-ins so much.
you know what happens though, Bernard?
What?
So the thought behind it. Okay, so if you the thought behind it kind of makes sense when the person is explaining it to you, but then when you explain back to them the technicality, it's like, no, that doesn't work. So the stylist looks at the client's hair and says, the client has thin, fine, delicate hair. Therefore, I should only grab 2 strands of hair or a little bitty amount of hair, because if I grab a bunch of it, it's going to put too much stress on that section when I go to attach the hair extension.
And so technically, they're minimizing the damage.
So in their mind, they're minimizing.
Right.
It's
In
funny,
reality, it's the worst thing to do.
Those words are all true and stupid.
Because in reality, it's the worst thing you can do. Like you're saying, the hair extension itself is weighted. And you need to have an equal amount, if not more amount of weight to support, not that the hair extension weighs that much, but it weighs something. So you got to have an equal amount of weight to support that. The other thing what stylists don't realize is when you first put the extension in, the scalp, because it's so close to the scalp, it's actually supporting some of that weight of the hair extension as well. The problem, it's not until it starts growing out a half an inch from the head or longer, now it's in free hang. Now gravity, you got G-force and gravity pulling on it. Now that's adding extra tension to the weight of that hair extension. So if that section doesn't have enough hair supporting it, it's a problem. And then the last thing I'll say, and let you guys dissect it some more, is if you only attach it to 2-3 strands of hair, natural shedding occurs. You cannot stop that, and you cannot control which hair on your head is going to shed.
Right.
So if you only attach it to 2-3 strands of hair and 1 or 2 of those shed, it's holding on by a thread. It's holding on by one strand. It's going to snap. It's going to cause breakage. I was going to
bring up the shedding issue, right? And that's another reason why I can't. Luckily, this was keeps us in a job. It keeps me in a job because it never fails. Every single class I go to now that I never liked eye tips for so many reasons, and I mean just that eye goes through the bead and pokes in the head. The eye itself gets destroyed. When you squeeze the bead around the eye, it stops. And the only hairs supporting the weight are the few hairs that get trapped between the bead and the eye. And you got all this loose space on both sides that hair is loose in there. And they think all that hair they pull through there is supporting, and it doesn't. And so when our onstage beaded extensions came out, I did just like most hairdressers do to me. I was getting sold it over the phone, this new idea that I had some people think I invented the whole thing. I didn't. I had some ideas when it came from strands to wefts. I had a lot more to do with that. But along the way, I had some ideas, and then they started doing it. They tried to explain it to me, and I said, oh, a bead? Forget it. I don't want it. I don't want to sell it. I don't have anything to do with it. I hate eye tips. They said it's not an eye tip. I said, what could it be? Beads and hair. How else are you going to use them? And that was exciting to me when I finally figured it out. I'm like, oh my God, they actually found a new way to use a bead to hold hair on a person's head that does not involve an eye tip and nothing else in the bead except for the client's hair. That is revolutionary. And so now when people ask me, how much hair should I pull through this bead? All the freaking hair that'll fit. That's how much hair. And people are like, wait, what if I pull too much? You can't. You can't. It won't fit through the bead. First of all, you're grabbing it with a loop and you're pulling hair that, hair's hanging like this. You're pulling it through like this. So it's got to double over, first of all, before it gets through. And so it's double the amount of hair. So you want that hair to barely be able to fit through the bead. If you're pulling it through easily, you probably should grab another hair or two. So every time you do it, try to get a little bit more hair. Maybe your section should be a tiny bit wider, a tiny bit deeper, and pull as much hair as you can. And it'll kind of get stuck a little. And you're like, oh, it might not come through. Well, give it a little try, give it a little wiggle. And if you get it through and then it singles out, it'll smoothly come through. That's how much hair you should have. We have 2 different size beads. And so our ultra weft has the micro bead. I don't know if you guys have tried the ultra weft yet. We've been trying it on some thinner haired clients, and boy, is it nice. This lady came in the other day. She had fine, thin hair. And we do hair replacement also. So she came in for a hair replacement or extensions or just something consultation. If you have a magic lotion, I'll make my hair grow back. That's what I actually want. That's how a lot of our consultations go. They just want the magic that they are hoping exists. And then I've got to tell them, I'm so sorry. Eddie sells magic. I haven't ever seen it work, but it's going to maybe work in the future. I'm going to put some hair on you today. And so I usually recommend extensions first in most cases, unless they're really, really thin on top. And then it hit me. Wait a minute. I'm the manufacturer. I've got the hair right down the hall. I can make a decision at the last second. First, the decision was, you got time? Taylor's got time to put hair on you right now. Yeah, we can do it right now during the consultation. Let's do it. And then she's like, but you said you were going to color my hair too. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. It's going to take even longer now. Let's get that hair colored. And then we'll put the hair on. And then I thought, her hair's really fine and thin. You can see through it. The ultra weft. Oh, my God. It's smaller, disappears more. You could barely see it. The hair hides the bead on both sides. And the bead is the smaller of the 2 beads we have on the ultra wefts as opposed to the original weft. Yeah. So it was so invisible, but you get used to pulling a certain amount of hair. Now it doesn't fit through because you're used to pulling all that hair.
Right.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, yeah. Why isn't it coming through? Well, it's a new bead. It's the bead that the individual strands come with. So the onstage beaded strands has a micro bead, and the onstage beaded wefts is a small bead. It's like ordering from Starbucks, both mean small, but one smaller than the other. And so the ultra weft now has the individual beads. It's a smaller bead, which is nice, but it does alter your technique a tiny bit, which is probably good for most people.
It's good, but that's the beauty of the onstage technique in such a way of the bead physically will tell you what it can and cannot do, what it wants and does not want.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things when John was first learning between keratin and beaded, that was one of the things where, with a keratin, it's such a free-form technique. You have to create that mechanical way of taking a section versus when you're using a beaded. Yeah, like Bernard's been saying, there's only so much room. If it fights you, then that's it. You can't,
Right.
John was telling me one time he was foiling somebody's hair and they had taken the section. Do you remember this, John? They had taken the section so wide that when you were trying to weave, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't.
Yeah. I couldn't get it to match up. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Because the sections were so wide for everything was pinching in.
Oh yeah. So with the hand tied technique that so many people are using, they're putting beads on the head before they sew the weft on. And if a bead is this wide, their section is like this wide. They're pulling hair from way over there. I can't even show you in the screen because it's like this wide. It's not quite. It's like an inch and a half wide to come through this little 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch bead. And the hair's like pulled to a tight ponytail, then going through a bead. And then about 2 inches or 3 inches over, they do another one. And that's, man, to me, that right there, don't even add the extension hair and you're going to have damage because you're just pulling the hair in these little ponytails that it shouldn't be in and then pushing that bead up against the head and squeezing it. And like, how do you like that? Now they got these pieces. I mean, it's got to be so freaking painful. And the clients are like, oh, it hurts to be beautiful. It hurts to be bad.
Yeah, beauty is pain.
It's going to look real good because I am hurting so bad right now.
How do you say, John? If it ain't burning, it ain't.
What?
What's the expression you say?
Burning, it ain't working.
If it ain't burning, it ain't working. Yeah, that's what he says with the hair color. If it ain't burning, it ain't working.
If it ain't burning, it ain't working. I still remember when I was first learning on stage, and Eddie puts this hook in my hand. Now, I'm a cap. I've been pulling caps since both of you were knee high to a grasshopper. And so immediately I start pulling like I'm pulling through a cap, right? And Eddie's like, no. And he showed me. Because I had these, I mean, and I'm thinking, I'm looking at this bead and I'm going, man, I can make this happen, you know? No, seriously. And I remember the first one I pulled, I'm holding the bead and I'm pulling the little thing and the handle comes off.
Oh, the little white handle of the red and green.
Yeah, the loop on the loop.
Yeah, the handle comes off. And I look at Eddie and I'm holding the green part in one hand and I've got the handle in the other. And I'm looking at Eddie going, what the hell? And Eddie's like,
This manufacturer is
Right.
I
must have got a bad loop.
It's a bad batch. No, actually, my first reaction was effing Bernard. But no.
Fun Bernard. That's what he meant.
Fun Bernard.
And Eddie looks at me and goes, "Can you stop being a gorilla for 2 minutes, please, and let me show you?" And then he showed me how actually where he goes in with the hook, but keeps the hook like horizontal, running perpendicular to the head, and you pull a perfect loop that way.
Right.
And it really, I love the finesse of it. I really do. And like you said, Bernard, there's a couple of times where it's a little tight, but if you really give it a couple of wiggles and it slides right through. And usually that's the one that when you go to take them out, that you have to wrestle to take out because it's been affixed to the hair, you know. But and once again, like we talked about, is that contact with the bead to the hair. Once that bead comes off and you get that weft out and you feel the hair, there's no stress on the hair unless they've been beating their head, you know, the extension up. But if they've been taking care of the hair's gorgeous. And you're not dealing with any fixatives or anything like that where you've got to, you know, comb gum out of the hair, you know, before you can even color it or anything. It's a fantastic. I love it, and my clients love it.
So along those same lines, I started to touch on it a minute ago and I didn't finish. This is where a lot of people ask me, so do I need to use new beads or can I just slide them up? And kind of like what Eddie was talking about, the shedding earlier. I said, I guess you could slide them up, but you've got to uncrimp it, bring it up and crimp it. And then what are you doing? You don't have the same section you started with 6, 8, 10 weeks ago. And they're like, what do you mean? It's not different. Yeah, it's different. Some of those hairs have shed. If you're around, I don't know, let's say 50 hairs in that little bead today, you bring it up, you squeeze it. Tomorrow, there's not 50 hairs in there anymore. Right. They're in there. There's 50 in the bead, but they're not all connected to the head anymore. And if you did it wrong or a bad angle or pull toward yourself, well, now you're even adding stress and causing damage even faster. And almost nobody gets exactly natural fall except for me.
Yeah,
and so,
of course.
The heavens opened up. Yeah. And so tomorrow you had at least one hair in there shed. And then the next day, a few hairs, you know, there's all kind of, it's all across the board, but the average person sheds. Some people say 50 to 100 hairs a day. Some people are saying it's more, some less, whatever it is. There's no way after at least a month or two that you have all the hairs in that bead still connected to the head. And that's what the little white balls are on the end of the hair. And that's why we ask for pictures or videos. And people say, look, there's a bunch of little white balls on here. Was all of that pulled out of my head or is it breakage? Usually when a little white bulb is there, that's what happens when the hair decides to let go all by itself. It's got what looks like a little white dot. Doesn't show as much on blonde hair because it's white, but on darker hair, people tend to notice them a little bit more. And so I don't recommend it when you can easily take a full weft out. We've got it timed. People that are not even that good at it in classes, getting started, take a full weft out in less than 3 minutes and put a whole new weft in. Listen, this is where people are making a mistake. You don't need to necessarily let all, I know some of you doing color and highlight, and so you got to let it all out. But my son Brennan often, he's got 2, 3 wefts on a person's head. I'll bring people from a class to go see him in the middle of doing a set. And I learn a lot watching him. And he's got a whole weft out and it's hanging on the comb rack. And he or an assistant's putting new beads on. And I said, you're not going to take the rest of her hair out or shampoo her? He goes, no, Dad. Why would I do that? I said, well, I don't know, because I always clean hair before I put a new set in when I did keratin bonds way back when. The cleaner the hair, the better it stayed in. He goes, no, we find that these beads stay in even better on dirty hair sometimes. I was like, oh, my God, that should be a sin to say. You can't say that out loud. He said, well, she cleaned her hair before she came in. I'm just saying that it doesn't matter if it's clean or dirty. It's not the same as a sticky substance like a keratin bond having to stick to clean hair, and maybe some barrier would make it not stick as well. This is it's instead of I don't even know what you would call that compared to what kind of bond, a crimped bond, where it's more of a practical. I don't even know what word to use, but it's
I think the biggest, I think the unique benefit to On Stage.
Let me finish this real quick, Eddie. Let me finish this real quick. So he's taking that weft out, rebeating it, and putting it right back in the exact same spot, so he doesn't lose the parting. He doesn't put it somewhere that she doesn't like because she loved it. He's just cleaning out all those shed hairs, lays it right back in there, puts it right back, and then goes to the next weft and does the same thing. So a weft comes out in 3 minutes, goes back in about 7 to 10 minutes. Why slide them up when you can so easily put new beads, new hair, good clean section, except for the clean hair part possibly. But go ahead, Eddie. I'm sorry.
I understand what Brendan is saying because I do it myself.
Mechanical bond. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. And it's one of the unique technological conveniences of On Stage. They use an aluminum bead. There's no silicone rubber in there. So if the hair is clean enough, I'll just say, and this is a total stylist thing. This is not an educator technicality of any way, because technically the hair is dirty. But from a stylist perspective, if the hair is clean enough, then, and the placement is great, the client loves the placement, then you take the hair out, you toss the beads, you get new beads, you slide them all back in through the weft, you prep the client's section, you brush it out really good and remove any, physical debris and stuff, right? And you pop that weft right back in, and it's fine, and you're good to go. But with other brands, some of their beads were metal. You couldn't do that. It needed to be clean. Otherwise, it would rust sooner. Some other brands had those little elastics or those little silicones or those little rubber rings inside of the bead. So you couldn't do that either. Then it would cross that barrier and it would cause it slippage, So again, that's where, in my opinion, I think it's one of the conveniences and uniqueness to the technology of the On Stage bead.
So we're going to wrap this up with the haircut.
Haircut and brushing. We are not leaving until we talk about brushing hair, damn it. Brush your hair.
Yeah.
So
I had the haircut.
I had a hairdresser. I've been doing something new, Eddie. You might want to start doing this. This new year, I'm doing something brand new. We've always focused on getting new clients. We've always been great about supporting our old clients, but only when they wanted it. Well, I'm making a concerted effort to go out and meet our existing clients. I'm doing camping trips in Nashville, Pigeon Forge so far with my wife and son. I said, let's go see some customers that have bought hair from us in some other cities. And we're borrowing my son's camper. And she said, why do we have to do it camping? I said, because I thought it sounded like fun, and so does my son, but my wife is not much of a camper. Everybody I tell this story, most people are like, oh, it sounds like so much fun. All that really matters is I'm going out seeing hairdressers that already buy hair from us, from a little to a lot. And one thing I'm doing is showing them the Ultra Weft, bringing them a couple of gifts, a brush set, and a couple of new little clips that have our logo on them, leaving them with the stylists in the salon. If any other stylists in the salon want to get certified while I'm there, I'm doing it for free. I'm already there, brushing up skills for the one that's there. And if she says she wants to get anybody else certified or taught while they're there, well, that's the benefit of the company, to be able to train more people. But as I'm going out, I don't even remember my point. Oh, I know it now because I went and saw one yesterday. And she says, what do you do with the ones that don't brush? Seems like some of them can brush your tangles out and some just can't. I said, well, it's hard to figure out who they are, right? So what I have learned is to hand the client a brush and say, show me how you brush your hair. That is fun.
That's awesome. I'm stealing that.
Tell Bernard how I blow dry clients' hair.
You hand the blow dryer to the client?
He does. The brush and the blow dryer, and he's like, show me how you blow dry your hair
while I'm eating lunch.
while he's eating a cookie and drinking
Well,
tea.
Well, it all came to me years ago with a hair replacement client who kept having a bald spot on her hair system in the same spot. And I had other people with the exact same color, exact same system, cut and style differently, weren't having problems. She kept saying the manufacturer, and you know what? I have learned that if the bald spot's here, they're usually right-handed. If the bald spot's here, they're left-handed. And they just brush too much on this one side. So I said, Miss Lisa, you say you're real gentle with brushing. When I'm done shampooing your hair at the bowl today, I just want you to show me how you brush it, because I'm not sure what's going on here. I mean, we've been trying to fix this problem. She leans forward, takes this. She goes, I'm telling you, I'm real gentle. Watch. She throws her hair over. She starts brushing, and it literally sounds like this. And I was like, stop. And she's like, what? You see? And I was like, oh, do I see? Miss Lisa, that is not gentle. What? I want to see freaking rough.
I want to see rough, right? If that's gentle, I want to know what rough looks like.
That's when I realized that words mean different things to different people. Wow. That was not even close to gentle. What part of that did she think was gentle? I mean, it was like,
yeah,
it was fast and hard. And I thought, no, I brush her hair after. How could she think that what she did was more or the same, more gentle or the same of what I was doing? It was totally. So I don't think you can fix some people, obviously, because there's just no fixing that. But I had to grab her wrist, slow down. You need to be slower. And, I also will teach people a push and a pull, or a push and a drag, because in a brush, or a comb, you can push through and grab tangles and stop or rip it out, right? But if you turn a comb the opposite way and drag it across, it will hardly take any tangles out. And so you have to start finding that happy medium between the push and the drag, to let those tangles get grabbed a little and then let go. And that's why the on-stage boar bristle brush will kind of forgive some of the bad angles, bad techniques, and kind of let go when you don't know how to let go. And so, yeah, brushing is good, Eddie. I'm glad you brought that up, because you're right.
Yeah.
Have the client brush their hair in front of you and learn what they think is okay or gentle. And it's usually not. You're usually not picking up, brushing little sections from the bottom to the top near the scalp. They're just slightly brushing over the top layers, and it's getting in those interior layers. It's just getting all tangled up and.
Yeah. See, I have a blow dry station in the shop, and I will sit and watch them blow dry, because I want to know what they're doing to their hair.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me. And I do the same thing. I'll stop. I'm gonna be like, no.
What are you thinking?
And the round brush, and then they put the blow dryer just right on top of the round brush and do this, but a little education goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I always explain to the extension clients, and I go, you have an investment in your hair. You have to take care of your investment. Yeah. I go, you take care of your car, you change the oil, you do all the maintenance on your car. You have to do the maintenance on the extensions too.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So then the cut. So that's on them, the maintenance. The cut is on us, right?
The cut's
we
on us.
We touched on it a little bit, but I think that's where a lot of people mess up the whole thing. Either just don't cut at all, or cut too much, or don't cut it right. And
I think everybody's worried about cutting straight lines too much. When it comes to hair extensions, and when I say point cutting, I'm not talking about doing this. This is not point cutting. You're just making a jagged straight line. Point cutting is point cutting is going in deep, not sitting at the ends, just going in deep and doing point cuts and purposefully shattering those ends so they're not a clean, perfect straight line.
Right. What was that? That was 2 shows ago, Bernard, when you showed me that when you were doing Vincey's hair, with that slide technique that you do. Explain that, would you?
Yeah. And so it's funny you use the word slide, because that's the word I tell people. That's what most people learn in school or somewhere along the way, some kind of sliding, slithering, basically razoring with scissors. And I am not doing that. I'm not sliding. And that's what people see when I'm doing it. But though I don't think I have a tool around here, but my scissors are literally cutting and then moving a little, cutting. So I'm cutting. So it's hard because it's like you got to do this faster than you go down the hair. And that's what I'm doing on that front edge and over the top layers. I'm doing little bitty cuts deep inside the scissor where I'm just cutting 1 or 2 hairs at a time and moving a little bit. And so I'm cutting little bits. It's almost like I'm doing the little talking symbol. But I've got videos, our hair cutting videos. The most watched video on this YouTube channel is me cutting this girl Elia's hair, and she has red keratin bonds by She Hair, golly, 10, 12, 14 years ago. But then I did my daughter-in-law when we got the on-stage hair. I did a cutting video with her, very similar, because the cut technique is still similar. I go through 5 simple steps that you need to kind of touch on to make it blend, and just trust the process. Because the first thing you do is you look at where it doesn't blend and you try to work on that. Don't do that. Just go through the 5 steps that I've created. One is parting the hair right down the middle, bringing it to the front, because that's where the client looks and says, this is the length I want. They can't point back here. Too often I've had them go like this. This is where I want it. And then they throw it in the back. I'm like, well, how the hell am I going to find that line back there? So I started learning the hard way again. I say, wait, stop right there. She goes, this is where I want it. I said, freeze. Don't throw that hair in the back like the last lady did, hold it right there, above or below the fingers. And she goes, above or below, whatever it was. I said, don't move your fingers. I'm going to cut it with your fingers right there. And I just did a rough cut it a little bit longer than what she said.
Right?
Yeah. And then I realized, oh, you know what? When she just did like that, if I would have parted it down the center cleanly and brought it in the front and cut the length here, it's pretty close to done on the length in the back.
Yeah.
Close. And that middle is a little longer because it traveled further than the side.
Over-directed. Yeah.
So I started perfecting that technique, but it all started with a client just throwing their hair over and saying, I want it here. And so then I learned the hard way a couple of times. If they're looking down at right here, all this hair just went shoo. And then I cut it, and then they look up, and that hair goes.
And it comes up here.
Ooh, that was a bad mistake. So having that chin up, they say right there. Then I step in front of them to do it, and they can't see themselves in the mirror anymore, and they're trying to look around. So they start looking down, and I watch the hair just go. So now if you cut it, it's not the same place. So you learn these things the hard way. And you could almost cut it in a ponytail in the front. It's better if you point cut it with some deep points and break it up at the ends. You start to learn that. And the one thing that I find fascinating with a lot of haircut teacher trainers and extension companies is the rules. I'm not a big this is the only way to do this from now on forever. And so many will say you have to cut hair extensions with a razor or it's not going to look good.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know what? You, Mr. Razor person, might do fine. But you put a razor in somebody's hand that's never used a razor before, it's probably not the best tool for them to start learning how to use a razor on an expensive hair extension job. Maybe they should use the tools that they were comfortable with using and just slightly changing their techniques to be a little less aggressive with their cutting, and maybe practice a razor on a mannequin head or somewhere else. And sure, a razor can be a fun, great, fast tool to cut extensions, but only if you get a razor. They're so much different if it's a brand new sharp razor compared to a dull razor. It cuts different in the beginning of the cut compared to the end of the cut. And how do we know that? We messed a few up.
mistakes and more mistakes. And that's that's the best way to learn. So what are some of the mistakes that you all have made? What are some of the mistakes you've learned to avoid? What are some of the mistakes you've heard about and you've always questioned, where you want to try it yourself to experience it, but you're kind of scared to dare yourself to do it? Let us know. We've probably done it ourselves, and in a future episode we could talk about it some more. John, thanks for joining us. Blondie boy, thanks for your insight. Catch y'all next week.
Bye, guys.